face as those who are trying to follow Jesus is the constant pressure to conform, where we have to confront that and step out against it. We're in a season right now which is often called the Xmas rush. Some call it the Christmas rush. But it is a mad dash for a lot of gifts and a lot of giving. And we in the church are trying to focus on the birth of Jesus, but I don't always do so great myself. What's interesting to me is that in God's Word, He links a specific conversation, a confrontation between the religious leaders and Jesus in the temple on the Feast of Dedication. And it's called the Feast of Hanukkah. And it's a celebration of what happened during what's called the Maccabean Uprising, when they finally had enough of the political and religious oppression, and they pushed back hard enough and kicked the foreign government out. And then they had to consecrate the temple because it had become a den of prostitution. It had been made an altar to Zeus, and a pig had been sacrificed on the altar. They had to tear down the altar, cleanse and purify everything, and then they set up this celebration, in part because of the victory, and in part because even though they only had one day of oil, it lasted 8 days until they could make more. So Jesus now walking in the temple, in the shadow of this very thing, is getting confronted. If you're the one, tell us. Part of them's wanting to know, look, will you meet our expectations? We had Judah Maccabees led this first rebellion. Are you going to lead the next one? And he disappoints them. How are you doing in the midst of the pressure to conform? And are you willing to confront that and push back? I'm not even talking about some political agenda. I'm talking about within the church and within your life. How are you walking in line with what Jesus is requiring of you? Secondly, has Jesus disappointed you? Is God not manifesting and showing up in the way that you thought he should? That's part of what was happening with Jesus. Part of it, they were trying to test him and trick him. But part of it, there was a real question in the air. And he so infuriates them that they pick up stones to kill him. How are you doing with the areas in which you thought God was going to come through? A prophetic word that you heard, something that stirred you. Maybe it's something that we released, and it just hasn't manifested in that way. We need to let God be God in this time. And then how are you doing with the provision that you have? And that even includes your life within you. You know, they could have waited till they had new sanctified oil made, and instead they lit it up. Well, technically, they only had 1 day of oil and it would have gone out, but they were willing to risk it. How about you? How about me? Are we willing to take a risk with what God has already set in us and then move forward in it? And then finally, this is a context thing. Jesus away in a manger is a lovely image. He was dropped high altitude, low opening into a warfare scene. And we know that because shortly after he arrives, genocide is mobilized, and there's a great cry that comes out of Bethlehem and the slaughter of innocents. We have to understand the time in which we are. The Feast of Dedication, or Hanukkah, which is found in John 10, as Jesus walks in there, is a context of light and dark clashing, both the celebration of what had happened some 200 years prior to that and what was going on then. It's happening right now. Watch the world scenes. Watch what's going on in you and measure the response of your heart.
So what? Why would God alert you to these things right now in this time? I think it's kind of funny that it's the 25th of Kislev and we celebrate Christmas on the 25th of December.